Strictly fans spot Dianne Buswell's heartwarming gesture to Chris McCausland mid-dance, and it's too much to handle. Dianne Buswell has long been a fan favorite on Strictly Come Dancing, known for her dazzling performances, fierce choreography, and, of course, her signature red hair that practically dances on its own. But this season, it's not just her dance moves that are making hearts melt, it's her kindness and teaching skills that have fans saying, "We can't cope with this level of sweetness." This weekend, Strictly fans were left utterly distraught, in the best possible way, after spotting a particularly touching moment between Dianne and her comedy partner, Chris McCausland, during their performance of the Paso Doble. As usual, Dianne and Chris gave it their all on the dance floor, but there was one moment in their routine that had the audience, and Twitter, absolutely swooning. The performance was already an elegant spectacle, with Chris twirling Dianne around and executing some seriously impressive footwork, especially for someone who's blind. But it was a small, but incredibly thoughtful gesture from Dianne that caught the attention of fans and sent social media into a full-on meltdown. At one point in the dance, while Chris was gracefully swirling around her, Dianne was on the floor in a dramatic pose, her skirt sprawling out around her like a giant sea of fabric. And in a perfectly executed, yet subtle move, Dianne reached down and gathered up the voluminous fabric of her dress, pulling it out of the way so that Chris wouldn't trip over it. It was such a simple act, yet so incredibly thoughtful, as she made sure her partner, who couldn't see the floor around him, wasn't at risk of stumbling. One fan on X, formerly Twitter, was quick to spot the gesture, and their reaction was pure emotional overload. "Chris McCausland and Dianne Buswell need all our votes tonight, if for nothing else other than when, whilst on the floor, Dianne gathered up her skirt so Chris couldn't trip on it. It's the little things that count." And they weren't alone in their appreciation. Another fan chimed in, agreeing that it was a moment that made all the difference. "I noticed that too, was such a smooth movement but so very, very cool." Cool? More like heart-melting, if you ask us! The fan who started the conversation added, "It obviously makes a huge difference and is something the other professional dancers don't even have to give a second thought to. That's why what Dianne is doing with Chris is beyond amazing." And honestly, they're spot on. It's these tiny, thoughtful details that truly highlight how much Dianne cares for her partner, and how much she's willing to adapt her performance to make sure Chris is supported every step of the way. But wait, the emotional roller coaster didn't end there. As if we weren't already tearing up from the performance and Dianne's gesture, the night got even more heartwarming when Dianne's parents made a surprise appearance in the audience. Mark and Rena had flown in all the way from Australia to see their daughter perform live, and it was the first time they'd been able to see her on the Strictly stage. Tess Daly, ever the warm and bubbly host, introduced Dianne's parents to the audience, saying, "Mark and Rena, here they are all the way from Australia. It is so lovely to see you. On behalf of all of us, the warmest welcome to you." It was a huge moment for Dianne, who was visibly moved by their presence. But the emotional high point of the evening came when Mark, in a moment of pure pride, announced, dancing the Paso Doble, "Here's Chris and our Dianne." At that point, Mark couldn't hold back his tears, overwhelmed by the sight of his daughter on the stage. Tess, always the professional, tried to keep it together but couldn't resist calling out, "Mark is crying, don't make me cry, Mark." And let's be honest, if Tess Daly is getting emotional, we're all in trouble. It was an especially emotional moment for Dianne, who had been waiting for this day for a long time. She revealed that her father had been scheduled to travel to the UK last year but had to cancel his trip after being diagnosed with cancer. Instead, Mark stayed in Australia to undergo chemotherapy, missing out on the chance to see his daughter dance live on Strictly. But after a long and challenging year, Mark's tears were tears of joy as he watched Dianne shine on stage, proving that sometimes life's setbacks only make the victories that much sweeter. After all the emotion, the performance ended on a high note, with the judges awarding Chris and Dianne a solid 33 points for their Paso Doble. It wasn't perfect, because, let's face it, nothing ever is on Strictly, but it was full of heart, and that counts for so much more. With the emotional roller coaster still fresh in their minds, Strictly fans were already talking about what the future holds for Chris and Dianne. Will they make it to the final? Will they continue to wow with their chemistry and heartwarming moments? One thing's for sure, Dianne's compassionate teaching and thoughtful gestures are winning her a legion of new fans, and we're all here for it. As for what's next, well, Sunday night's elimination is sure to be tense, but for now, let's all just bask in the warm, fuzzy feeling that only Strictly can provide. And maybe stock up on tissues, just in case we need them again.